Miss Collier explains.
Rates and best buys.
Today, our learning intention is to understand that best buy relates to finding the best value for money. We also want to be able to simplify rates. Lastly, we want to be able to determine the best buy in comparing two or more prices. We will know we have been successful when we can simplify rates and determine the best buys. All right, so we said that ratios show the quantities of two of the same units. Rates, on the other hand, show the relationship between two different types of units. Therefore, it's really important that we explicitly write the units within our rate. Now let's think of some examples of some rates. We've got like kilometers per hour, beats per minute, dollars per liter. All right, all of these are examples of rates. And as we can tell, they compare two different things: dollars and liters, kilometers and hours. They're two different things that are being used to compare. What you may have noticed in all of those is that I use the word per. Dollars per liter. The word per means for each. So let's think of it. Dollars per liter. Dollars for each liter. Kilometers per hour. Kilometers for each hour. The word per is one of our main words for rates. But when we're writing it out, we don't have to write the full word. We instead use the symbol of a slash. So for example, I could write kilometers per hour, dollars per liter. So we can use our abbreviations, but we have to show our appropriate units within our rate. Just like ratios, rates can often be simplified. This helps them to be most useful because we can compare or even multiply them up if we need to use them in different situations. We use something called the unitary method. And if we look at the word unitary, we can see this word uni, which when the word uni is used as a prefix means one. Think of unicycle, one wheel. So uni means one. So the unitary method means we need to bring down the rate until there's one. This makes it easy for it to compare. Let's see what I mean. This picture is of Glenn Maxwell, and he is the Melbourne Stars batsman. All right, let's say that he is able to score 64 runs out of 32 balls. His batting strike rate would then be 64 runs per 32 balls. We can simplify this down to 2 runs per ball. So all I've done here is I've divided it down by 32. So for every ball that is thrown, he gets an average of 2 runs. By simplifying this down to 1 ball using the unitary method, I can then use this statistic in many different situations. It gives me a much better idea of how many runs he might score per ball. And if someone said to me, how many runs would Glenn Maxwell get if he had 70 balls thrown at him, I could calculate that by multiplying. So that is an example of the unitary method. It tells us how many runs there are per 1 ball. All right, let's have a go at simplifying some rates together. Firstly, I have texting 48 words in 3 minutes. So whenever we're simplifying a rate, we have to bring it down to that unitary method. So I'm going to write here 48 words per 3 minutes. Then what I need to do is have that second value, the minutes, be 1. So I like to write words per 1 minute. And then I say to myself, what number do I have to divide 3 by to get to the number 1? The answer is 3. I'll give you a hint. It's always its own number. And I have to do it to both sides. So I'm dividing by 3 on both sides. And if I think, what is 48 divided by 3? I realize that it's 16. You are able to use a calculator, by the way, but you have to show this full working out exactly as I'm doing it. Remember, working out is a big part of mathematics. All right, right, so that's simplified. I now know I'm texting 16 words per minute. If I wanted to, I could also write that a bit simpler by using my dash. All right, let's do B. Flying 900 kilometers in 90 minutes. Now, let's go like this. 900 kilometers per 90 minutes. Now, the first thing I need to do is get it down to 1 minute. Per 1 minute. All right, so I've got to think, how did I get from 90 to 1? And again, I'm using the exact same number, so divide by 90. Divide by 90. Now I can use my calculator, but 900 divided by 90 is of course 10. Now often when we're doing minutes, we don't actually like to keep it as a minute. It's almost always preferable to do it as an hour, unless the activity is really short. So we prefer to keep it as an hour. And so this one is where it gets a little bit more difficult. I now want to know how many kilometers per 60 minutes. So I have to say to myself, how do I get from 1 to 60? And I'm going to times by 60. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. And 10 times 60 is 600. And so now I can write that it's 600 kilometers per hour. So often we like to convert minutes into hours. And it's still the unitary method because it's 1 hour. All right, now you give it a go. All right, let's really quickly go through these answers. I'm going to do 160 meters per 20 seconds. And I say to myself, how do I get from meters per 1 second? Of course, I'm dividing by 20 and I have to do it on both sides. I need to do those little arrows and the divide sign in my working out every time, all right? 160 divided by 20 is of course 8. So I have 8 meters per second. I'd really like you to try and write it in this way as well. All right, quickly, $70 per 5 liters. I want to know how many dollars per 1 liter. I say to myself, how do I get from 5 to 1? Divided by 5. I have to do it on both sides. And 70 divided by 5 is of course 14. So I've got $14 per liter. All right, I'm sure one of the most common rates that you've heard of is kilometers per hour. That might be when you're driving in the car or even if you're riding a bike or going for a run yourself. So while we did it a little bit, I want to show you how to calculate kilometers per hour. Here I have an example. A car travels 62 kilometers in 22 minutes. So I'm doing the exact same method, 62 kilometers per 22 minutes. And I say to myself, how do I get from kilometers per 1 minute? Now, of course, I'm going to divide by 22 to get down to the 1, and I have to do it on both sides. Now, 62 divided by 22 is not a pretty sum. And sometimes when we're doing things in real life, it's not going to be that easy. That's why we use our trusty calculator. And I'm doing 62 divided by 22. And I'm going to round to 2 decimal places. So that's 2.818. So the third number makes it round up, 2.82. So it's 2.82 kilometers in every minute, but I want per hour because that's the most common rate. So I want kilometers per 60 minutes. So of course I'm going to have to times by 60. Times by 60. So I'm taking 2.82 times by 60 is 169.2. So my kilometers per hour is 169.2 kilometers per hour. Really speeding car there, isn't it? All right, let's look at some quick other examples of how we can use rates and the unitary method to calculate any cost. So here I have some oranges and it's $24 for 8 kilograms. And I want to know how many it would cost for 6 kilograms. I'm not going to go straight from 8 to 6. I'm going to go down to the unitary method because then I can calculate any amount. So I want to know the dollars for 1 kilogram. And of course, that means I'm dividing by 8 on both sides. And 24 divided by 8 is 3. So it's $3 for every kilo. And now I want to know how much for 6 kilograms. So how to get from 1 to 6? Times by 6. Both sides. And 3 times 6 is 18. So now I know that it costs $18 for 6 kilograms. Making sure you're checking the reasonableness of your answer. If I had gotten an answer bigger than 24, that wouldn't have been very reasonable. Let's do one more quick one. A machine in a shampoo factory produces 210 bottles every hour. Okay, 210 bottles per hour, which is 60 minutes. How many bottles would be produced in 40 minutes? So I wrote in minutes because I could see that I'm going to have a minutes as my last answer. So while it's already in the unitary method for hours, because now I want to work in minutes, I'm going to bring that unitary method down to 1 minute. So how many bottles per 1 minute? So I'm going to go 60 divided by 60 equals 1. And I'm just going to use my calculator for this. 210 divided by 60 equals 3.5. So it's 3.5 bottles for every 1 minute. Now I want to know how many bottles can be done in 40 minutes. So I'm going to times by 40. And 3.5 times 40 equals 140. So they can do 140 bottles in 40 minutes. One of the main advantages of rates and the unitary method is that we can use them to compare. When we talk about best buys, that is comparing rates to determine the best value for money, or even sometimes best performance or things like that. It's really easy to compare rates once we bring them both down to the same unitary unit. Let's practice comparing two prices to figure out which one is better value. All right, here it says I'm calculating the best buy for dog food. And I have Kings. Now I always like to label my things. It just helps my teacher understand what I'm talking about. I have King and I have Thrive. Now for Kings, it's $35 per 5 kilograms. And Thrive is $60 per 12 kilograms. We always like to put kilograms or all those sorts of things that we're going to bring down to the number 1 at the end. All right, for this side, I am dividing by 5 because I'm trying to get it down to 1 kilogram. And on Thrive, I'm dividing by 12 because again, I need it to be 1 kilogram. So 35 divided by 5 is 7. So this is $7 per 1 kilogram. And 60 divided by 12 is 5. $5 per 1 kilogram. All right, so immediately I can see that Thrive is better value. Now, this is really important. You actually have to write that. So we can't just do the calculations. We then need to make a recommendation, or we need to make a decision, and we need to actually write the decision in a sentence. I don't know if you know this, but if you are ever given a math problem that comes in a sentence, you actually need to write a sentence for the answer. That's super important. So we actually have to write a sentence about which one is cheaper. All right, you take a moment to try to do this problem yourself. Okay, let's quickly go through the answers ourselves. I've got Super Clean. All right, let's quickly go through the answers ourselves. I've got Super Clean and I've got Dish Right. Now, Super Clean is $55 per 5 kilogram. And Dish Right is $48 per 4 kilograms. All right, this side I'm dividing by 5. Don't forget, I have to show all this working every time. It's really important that I show my teacher what I'm doing. All right, 55 divided by 5 is 11 per 1 kilogram. And 48 divided by 4 is 12 per 1 kilogram. So I need to write my sentence. Super Clean is better value.